But yeah, so this morning I'm going to give you a little bit about the evolution of Aluxi Consulting Limited, which starts with some background into my own gene pool. So keeping in with the theme of my evolutionary process, I was born in a small village in Kent called Aylesford, which is not going to pop up on the screen. There we go. Beautiful village. That's the church where I was baptized, married, and even my father painted the clock, as my parents were Bill and Beryl. That's me, aged 2 months in the winter of discontent of 1962. My father was a painter and decorator, and my mother was in the shorthand typing pool, so very sort of humble roots. In fact, my mother got me into my first work experience at age 2. That's me sat at one of the early electric typewriters, and touch typing did become one of my skills. And I was the eldest child of 3. This is me with my brother and sister. We were all dressed up very smartly because we were going off on our first holiday to Malta, which my mother was really excited about, only because her sister was married to a naval officer who was posted out in Malta in the 60s. So we got a free holiday accommodation. My primordial soup, so to speak, I graduated initially in biology. That's not splatters of microorganisms across the photo, it's just very old. From Portsmouth, I got my degree down on the south coast, and that led me into, firstly, the medical microbiology arena with the NHS at the London Hospital, which after 3 months I got completely bored with. You were sat on a production line all afternoon. So I went into the environmental consulting, and this is me in my PPE. I was an independent air testing, I worked for an independent air testing laboratory, and we obviously had to get suited and booted in white preps. This was a full face HPAV positive pressure mask. And the reason this is me stood outside my front door is because my grandmother was absolutely paranoid about me working in this industry. So I had to demonstrate to her how safe it was. But after about 8 years running around London, crawling all over buildings, looking for asbestos, etc., I decided I wanted to do something different. So I went to Aston University and did an MBA. It was the cheapest one in England at the time. It cost me 2,000 quid. And I got that on a loan through Barclays, which I didn't have to pay back until 5 years later, interest-free. The reason I did that was because I then mutated into management consulting. It was one of those industries that was starting to become a popular catchphrase amongst businesses, but my key reason for going into it was because it allowed you to travel the globe. So my first posting was in Scotland. This isn't Scotland, but the process that the management consulting company that I was employed by was, first of all, to do a business analysis, which was normally 2 or 3 weeks, a large team, 6, 7, 8 consultants, identifying the opportunity that existed in the businesses that we could then pitch to the client to save, make them financial productivity savings. So this is actually me. I'm the second from the left. This is a 120-ton truck that in an open coal mine. This was in the south of Chile. We were obviously out on the front line, analysing and working and sort of observing day shifts with in this case, the truck drivers. But this fascinated me, and this is what really sort of drove my passion of the absolute magnitude of industry is amazing. And you'll see these trucks being transported up and down Chile in bits. So one truck will have the whole sort of dumper on top of it, another truck will have the 4 wheels, etc., etc. So this was the business analysis. And once we'd been out during the day, we would then come back to our hotel and write up the studies. And in the olden days, this is what we used to produce, is maybe sort of 2 or 3 meters of analyses of what's happened throughout the day, commentary, and then the graphs at the bottom were designed to have a visual impact to the client to show green is good, red is bad. I would have said that this particular study wasn't a very good one because there's too much green. But that was how we started to demonstrate to clients how you can actually reduce the amount of red and make more money for your business. And invariably, this would go on until about 3 o'clock in the morning. And this is what you looked like after one day out on study, and you had to do 10, 12 or 15 of those days. So this is where my hatred of early mornings sort of came along from. after the business analysis, if we had sold the project, the first thing we would do is second a group of the client's people onto what we call task force training. David Blagden, you're going to love this, because this would be the system and process mapping that we would do. And this was me with our first task force team with one of the large whiskey distillers in Scotland. This was probably about 10 o'clock at night, mapping out a process for a particular department in the company. And this would be training them to do the process mapping. And I still use this technique of brown paper mapping today, much to many people's disgust. And we were so in love with our brown papers that invariably we'd end up taking them to bed as well to finish them before the morning. So we really put the task force through quite a vigorous process over the week. Other types of training, even more high tech, was productivity training, which involved, getting everybody to scramble around on the floor, making jigsaw puzzles. This particular exercise was called the Heinemann puzzle, which involved getting them, 4 teams working on one corner each and trying to get it down to as few seconds as possible, just to demonstrate where lost time existed, where wasted time could be done when too many people were involved. And eventually what would happen is you'd start off with a team of 8 people taking about 3 or 4 minutes to do this. And by the end of the run, you'd be down to 1 person finishing the whole puzzle in about 30 or 40 seconds, but I won't give you the secret. So once we got the task force training out of the way, then we would obviously move into the project. So launching into my, I've called it my global Lindamic travels. Over the 12 years that I've consulted in the management consulting industry, these are some of the places that I worked and lived in. Obviously Scotland, there's the whiskey distillery. I've only managed, this is off my website, so there's like 12 different industries that I've worked in here. Mack Truck was one of the companies I consulted to in North Carolina, did a lot of journalism. I worked for consulted to 3 or 4 newspapers. This was the most, number 12 was my first expedition down to Chile, where I had the really wonderful, exotic, luxurious location of working in a cement factory in the absolute middle of nowhere. And if it rained, your clothes went stiff because all the cement powder would be impregnated in it. And if you left them on the radiator overnight, your clothes were pretty grotty by the morning. But yeah, clinics, forestry, abattoirs, fruit processing, manufacturing, banking, retail, more manufacturing, international shipping, etc., etc. So you're all probably aware, I actually settled in Chile, and one of the Chilean traditions is Chilean rodeo riding, which is a little bit different to the American rodeos. Really fascinating. These horses are as expensive as polo ponies, very highly trained, and the idea is that you're chasing a little cow around a half moon ring and trying to get the cow up against a cushion on the side. So they're very, very, very nice to their animals, not. Now, interestingly, this particular chap here was a naval officer as well as a Chilean rodeo champion. And about a year after this photograph was taken, we were married. So this is how I met my husband. This is Mario. He was a lieutenant in the Chilean Navy. And we did sort of stay together all the way through my career down in South America. Went to South Africa for a couple of years. And that was when we did decide that we would come back to England. And continuing the theme of procreation, on expanding on our gene pool, we had 2 children in Chile. This is my son, Ben. Ben followed in his father's footsteps. He's now a marine engineer, living the terrible life on board luxury yachts. He's currently in the Mediterranean on a yacht called MY Palladium, which is owned by one of the Russian oligarchs who's got 2 palladium mines. Ben is under the decks. He's not one of the hospitality stewards. He's down in the bilges and in the engine rooms, which he absolutely loves. And I also have my beautiful daughter, Amelia. And Amelia followed in her mother's footsteps as biological. She's a veterinary nurse, or she's just about to qualify. And we don't yet have any marriages in the family, but we do have a grandpup, which I'm really proud of, which is really stupid. But this is Ted, the Dutch Hound, who's only a 1.5 years old. So that was us expanding our gene pool. When we did come back to England, and again, I have alluded to it previously, that I had come out of the management consulting industry completely exhausted, stress, etc. And I did go through quite a few years of quite serious health issues. In 2006, I contracted something called labyrinthitis, which caused me to lose the hearing in my right ear completely. I have subsequently been fitted with what they call a BAHA, which is a bone-assisted hearing aid, which has a little processor pop into it to help me in noisy environments. In 2009, I was diagnosed with breast cancer, took 2 years of treatment and managed to get through that relatively unscathed, apart from a few scars. And then even 2012, I had 6 months of extreme pain and was diagnosed with gallstones. So had my gallbladder taken out. But obviously the cancer was the far more concerning one, and we got through that. So as a family, it actually brought us more together. And I talk about accentuating the positive and eliminating the negative. We started to get involved with another couple of, some more couples who has also been, lives have been affected through breast cancer, in charity fundraising. And my first attempt, yes, I've got bright pink hair, Annalisa, you'll relate to this. This was my early growth hair after it had fallen out from chemo. So we started doing the Race for Life. That was me and my daughter. And the boys were slightly more adventurous. This is my son and husband did the coast to coast, 190 miles across the north of England. This is Ben standing quite rightly next to a sign that said crackpot. This is a whole group of friends down here that we joined up with over sort of 6 or 7 years, and we regularly did a big fundraising charity event every 2 years, mainly for breakthrough breast cancer, including the ultimate one was the Pink 250, which was 50 kilometres of walking, 100 kilometres cycling and 100 kilometres rowing over 5 days, the majority of which the boys did. I tend to do the more gentle pursuits of the Crocus Walk, crossing the White Cliffs of Dover. And then more recently, we've been doing the Chariots of Fire race up on St Andrews Beach in Scotland. That was the 2018. Sadly, I'm invariably the one coming in last, crossing the finishing line right at the end. And this year, as most of you know, I did my second but much longer triathlon, doing a 750-metre swim, 20k bike ride, and a really gentle 5k walk with my sister and friends. So that has sort of been our family pursuits over the last few years. Then came, in 2014-15, the birth of a Luxi. I'd been working as an employee and decided I really couldn't stand working with other company owners, and I really wanted to bring my core skill set back to being my main job. So in 2015, I incorporated a Luxi Consulting. And with all of that, went through all of the pain and agony that all of you will be very well aware is quite costly, time-consuming, blood, sweat and tears, of defining your brand, getting your brand messaging, understanding what it is you're going to be selling yourself on. And sales and marketing has always been my biggest fear. So I actually got to know a guy called Barnaby Winter from the Brand Bucket Company, who helped me form my brand galvanizer, which defines how we behave, what we do, what we are, what my differentiating core is. And he's now actually become my mentor. So that was an extremely painful but really worthwhile exercise. And obviously had to invest in my first website. This is what it looked like in 2015, and a little bit more about that later. So that was how things got started. Then over the next few years, you have to start building up your business DNA. So building the Luxi DNA, my first thing was into networking, which was clearly very hard work. This is me with Ryan Avery, an American speaker, more sort of networking events. And obviously over the last couple of years, we've had to resort to Zoom calls. This was either very early in the morning or last thing at night, because once again, I look completely exhausted. Following my networking journey, I recognized that it wasn't always the best forum to generate new leads. And with Barnaby's mentoring, I was developing an idea that I needed to get out there and promote myself as the productivity expert. And this is Ryan Avery's philosophy is you have to go from A to the. You're not a productivity expert, you're the productivity expert. And that's what this little diagram in the background was. That was his talk. So I started to get more into exhibiting. This again was probably a very early morning start. This was my first ever exhibition stand, which when I look at it now, I absolutely cringe at. Yes, that is me with the great sporting rugby player Mike Tyndall, who I was trying to flog tickets to my charity ball to at one exhibition. This is me with one of the Kent MPs, whose name completely fails me right now. And this is some of the networking buddies that I'd started to build up quite good relationships with, being complete maniacs, but at least it always made me smile. So as you can see, my stand started to improve a little bit as life went on. And that inevitably led into some speaking opportunities, which is always a good way to get your face out there. So I started putting together talks, keynote events, workshops. This was me telling the typical SME business owners how bad they were at managing businesses, which isn't the best way to develop relationships. Even dragged my kids into it. This was Ben speaking in a radio pod at one of the events. I think that was the year we were trying to push tickets for the charity ball that we did in 2017, which did raise £5,000 for breakthrough breast cancer. And I was able to put on a nice sparkly dress instead of having to run around in sloppy old running gear. And this was me with a couple of local Kent businesses when I was chair of the Relate charity, where we were often, and I would often speak on their behalf as well. And also managed to start getting into a few radio and TV appearances, and this is really good fun. And again, it was me promoting the idea that I am the expert in productivity, and the host would obviously prep you and get you all geared up to how the conversation was going to go. And I even managed to get onto the really infamous worldwide KMTV, which is Kent's internet TV, which was run at the time by this gentleman who looks like Clark Kent, but that's actually Chris Price, the local journalist for business at the Kent Messenger. He's now a journalist with the Telegraph, so he went on to bigger and better things as well. And during all of that, I picked up a few awards along the way. So in 2016, I was nominated for 2 categories at the Kent Independent Traders Award. I came runner-up in the Contributions to the Community Award, because of all the charity work and voluntary work that I was doing. But more importantly, I was the winner of the Professional Achievement Award, mainly down to me achieving fellowship of the Chartered Management Institute, which at the time I was only one of 374 women, I think it was, that had been awarded fellowship status. So I was really proud of that. But not least, it also added a hell of a lot of kudos and credibility to both myself and the brand when you're out there marketing, which, 5 years previously, I would have absolutely cringed at. But you really have to find your courage to really sort of talk about yourself when you're trying to build up a business that is all about you, and you are the only resource the business has to market on. So that was the early beginnings of Luxi. Where am I now? Luxi 2021, or Gen 2, not Gen 7. This is the homepage of my new website. So we've really cleaned things up, even allowed myself a little pop of colour. So we've gone with the Luxi orange, whereas previously we just stuck to the grey, the blue and the white. And this is what I took the opportunity during COVID to really clean up and reflect is the word I'm looking for, reflect on the previous 5 years and look at what had gone well, what had not gone so well, what did I need to do to improve my whole product offering. And out of that, we really streamlined the whole client journey. When I talk about we, that was myself and my very trusted marketing strategist, Anwin Cooper from Get Fruitful Marketing. So the next sort of couple of slides, I'm going to explain what my product offering is. So the client journey starts with my business success scorecard, which is an online 10-minute or 15 minutes. Thanks to Steve Gold has had a go at this week. You can give us some feedback in private later, Steve. And it's 100 statements that the respondent just has to respond between 1 and 5, how they perceive they are doing on that statement in their business. And there are 10 separate categories that then we then score 10 key success areas in business, which gives you an overall rating. This is not Steve's, I hasten to add. So obviously what I'm trying to get the lead or the prospect to do is identify where is their current score And anything that scores below 50%, I score a pink is profit growth potential. If you score up to about 85%, then there's clearly still opportunity to optimize. But if you do score over 85%, then that would indicate that, great, you're ready to evolve. You can move on and start to grow your business. These are not all the 10 categories. But that has been a revelation in getting leads on board and actually whetting their appetite to thinking, I could really need to do something different in my business. From there, I then offer, if the lead that has completed the scorecard wants to move forward, I offer a breakthrough session. That's a 60-minute one-to-one debrief of the scorecard, and we have an exploratory chat, and I then deliver some summary recommendations, obviously designed to whet the appetite further, to show these are the sort of things I would suggest you need to do, in the hope that we can then lead into what I call my test drive, the Launchpad workshop. And that is a much more in-depth half-day, one-to-one, we call it the deep dive, into those detailed operations to reveal a more panoramic view of where that business is, both technically and tactically. And from the tactical side, what I also offer at this stage is the engagement multiplier, which is an anonymous benchmarking survey. And the engagement multiplier tool is used to gauge and monitor staff's engagement with the overall business purpose. I'm a massive advocate of this tool, and I've been using it for the last 5 years. But it is one that after the benchmark survey, the client can then choose to subscribe to that, because it's a tool that they recommend you use every 90 days. So, you know, companies that only choose to survey their people once every 1 or 2 years are not getting the best opportunity to start engaging and getting their people motivated to make things work better in the business. So my Launchpad workshop is it serves 2 purposes. It also gives the client an opportunity to understand how I work, what my methodologies are, and how my personality is. Obviously, you know, we all recognise we're not everybody's cup of tea. So that is a really good opportunity. It's a paid workshop. My fees for that start at around £750 for a half-day workshop. Depending on the size of the client and how many people they want to include in the workshop, it can go up to anything to around £1,250. And from that workshop, I can then prepare a much more concise and considered proposal to the client, which would then point them toward which one of the Luxide programs they might benefit most from in order to start tackling the initiatives or the recommendations that have come out of the workshop. So my programs, in terms of where I'm pointing towards, the entry-level program is what I call my Business DNA Open course. This is 6 sessions or 6 afternoon sessions or half-day sessions over 13 weeks, but it's on a group basis. So I might get 6, 8, 10 business owners from different companies coming onto that, because they probably haven't got the size of business, or they haven't got the funds to pay for one-to-one business consulting. So this is almost like, you know, the entry level, come into a group and we'll do it all together. But it does still apply the training to apply all the proven management theory that I've developed into practice, and gives them the complete Luxide toolbox to develop their own business DNA and create their self-managing businesses. It still does contain a lot of the CMI recognised course from the leadership and management skills, but it is much more the technical, how to set up your systems, how your processes need to work, etc., etc. And that's priced around £1,500 per business. And I'm trying to start marketing that to do maybe 2 a year of those.
Linda, just a quick time check. We are kind of running out of time.
Sorry, I'm on my last 3 slides here. The second, my sweet spot, is the Escape Velocity program. That is the one-to-one support over 13 months. And I do get the client to commit to those 13 months. And that is designed to pull the business owner free from that gravitational pull of the day-to-day operations and achieve much greater versatility to get to their strategic orbit and get more time dedicated to the business growth rather than the day-to-day running of the business. And that starts at around £1,250 a month over 12 months. The larger program, which is me dedicated on site to the clients, maybe a day, day and a half, up to 2 days a week, is what I call my bespoke productivity evolution. And that is a real custom to solution. I might be there for up to 6 months. providing all the business productivity consulting to those business leaders that are ready to scale up to the next level of growth and profitability. I do still market my leadership and management development program, but I don't recommend offering it as a standalone product, because that then goes against my whole systems and training for that behavioural change that I demonstrated in my first learning show. So that is, then we're starting to get into the 25, 30, 35,000 pounds project, but that is a real sort of wall to wall, me getting in there and helping them go through the whole productivity improvement program through to implementation. That's it. Thank you very much. That's the Linda Garcia and Alexi show.
Great, Linda, thank you so much. I'm highly impressed. I'm sure the rest of the team are as well.